Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just three quick points in rebuttal. First and foremost, I myself am a veteran of the Iraq War. I was there for 6 months, actually, in 2009. And if we would just pass the Healthcare for Burn Pit Veterans Act that the Senate passed by unanimous consent, we could pass that, put it on the president's desk at the end of this week. There's nothing standing in our way except the Democratic Party on this. Also, I would just remind my good friend from Massachusetts that my motion does not prevent the House from considering the Honoring Our Pact Act. It doesn't. It simply amends the rule to also allow for consideration of the American Energy Independence from Russia Act. And I'm sure everyone on the other side of the aisle would agree that lowering gas and heating prices for all American families and ending our dependence on Russian oil is of the utmost importance. In fact, I just got an alert that a gentleman from my colleague's State General Assembly just put forward a bill on the floor of the General Assembly of Massachusetts to stop the importation of Russian oil. 60% of the natural gas our country imports actually goes to Massachusetts. People don't realize that. But if New York would get out of the way and allow Pennsylvania to have a pipeline from Pennsylvania to New England, the New Englanders wouldn't need dirty Russian oil. They could use Pennsylvania natural gas, but I digress. We can and should find the time this week to add the American Energy Independence Act to our agenda. And lastly, ad nauseum, I've heard bill after bill after bill from the leftists across the other side of the aisle on electric vehicles. And yet again, I'm reminded that the Republicans, we are the real party of science, because if you look at the actual science, an electric car will generate just 23% fewer greenhouse gas emissions than a gasoline-powered car. In fact, if you were to take every gas-powered car on the face of the planet and get rid of it, it would only mean a mere 1.8% decline in total emissions. This is fake science. We have alchemy and chemistry. We have astrology and we have astronomy. We have the Democratic Party. We have the Republican Party. To talk more about this, I yield 2 minutes to my good friend from North Dakota, Representative Kelly Armstrong.
Gentleman's recognized.
My hometown of Dickinson, North Dakota, is in the southern part of the Bakken oil patch. It is where we unleashed this revolutionary technology of shale, hydraulic fracturing, horizontal drilling, and producing natural gas. But you know what else is 18 miles away from my childhood hometown is an ethanol plant. 7 miles to the west is a biodiesel plant. 14 miles south is the largest wind farm in North Dakota, generation of Brady 1 and Brady 2. About 80 miles to the northeast, we are figuring out how to strip rare earth metals out of lignite coal so we can be less dependent on Russia and China in all of those issues. The people who work and live in my communities grow all the cereal grains, and the byproducts from the ethanol plant control are fed to feedstock to our cattle industry. So I don't need lectures from anyone on all of the above energy, particularly when the left's version of all of the above energy is solely wind, solar, rainbows, unicorns. And here's the dirty little secret. The world's going to burn more carbon in 2 years, whether we shut down domestic production or not. And this naive and idealistic viewpoint that if we shut down American industry, American ingenuity, then the rest of the world will follow along is fundamentally differential to the fact we're watching it play out in real time. Our strategic adversaries, and indeed our enemies, will fill this space. That is the fact, because the world needs these products, and they're going to continue to utilize these products. But at least welcome this, we're going to do nothing to reduce global carbon emissions, because the atmosphere doesn't recognize countries' borders. So I urge my colleagues to defeat the previous question, allow this to go back, and let us do what we were doing so well until the last year, developing American energy, allowing it to be utilized from our adversaries. But I can tell you one last thing, and then I'll close. In the last year, we haven't had a federal lease sale in North Dakota. Congressional Democrats have tried to ban the transport of liquefied natural gas by rail. And so let's be honest about how we got here so we can get there in the future. And with that, I yield back.